Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Angel Jibreel, to the messengers. So to go around and to think that our solutions are going to come from the Barnes & Noble's self-help section, or this recent podcast, or the somebody something show, there's always a new guy making a new show or a new lady making a new show. That is not where we're going to find our solutions. Now, does that mean that we can't take wisdom from the wise? Yes. You can. I'm not saying that you can't, but it should always be in light and the context of the ultimate blueprint. If a consultant comes in and says, oh, I see where the problem is, here's your blueprint, here's where the deviation is. If you alter this deviation, now you'll be able to attain your goal. And maybe since I see the field conditions, because of the field conditions, I know you can't move this way, so maybe we can make a minor adjustment this way and we can just make sure that is concordant with the goals of the blueprint. Then yes, that's an acceptable piece of advice that a person would take. It's reasonable. It makes sense because it's contextual based upon the blueprint that originally existed. But to randomly come up with ideas, and the person themselves has no idea what they're talking about, they're talking about things that they themselves don't practice. Were you to spend a day with them, you would recognize that this is nothing anywhere near what I'm trying to be myself. That's not beneficial for anyone. So again, going back to the topic, when we find that our lives are not the way that we want them to be, the very first step is to go back to the blueprint. Number one, know that we have a blueprint. And to number two, open up that blueprint and ask the very, very simple questions. Here's what I need to be. Here's where I am. Where are the deviations occurring? So that's step one. Step two, when a person wants to realign their life, is to recognize that in analyzing the blueprint, you always start with the pillars. Now, many of you probably don't have the experience of looking at an architectural blueprint, but I can tell you that when you look at an architectural blueprint, there's lines and dashes and dots everywhere. But somebody who has experience with the blueprint knows that the first thing you do is you find the pillars. What are the pillars of this structure? Because it's from these pillars that the additional beams and supports are being generated, which then allow the entire structure to come together as one whole unit. So you always look for the base. It's almost like a tree. When you look at a tree, you know there's a trunk. So when you look at all the connecting members, you eventually know that there's a pillar somewhere. So, for example, if a person comes in and they want to analyze your building and they want to find where a deviation is, their first thing that a good consultant is going to do, they're going to say, where are your pillars? Where are the things upon which the rest of the building is predicated? They will identify the pillars. They will analyze the pillars. They will make sure every pillar is straight, every pillar is properly structured, every pillar is properly designed so that it can support the rest of the building. And it's based on the pillars that they eventually will then move forward as they make their analysis. Now, why do I mention that? Because the same concept applies when we find that our lives have deviated from what we're trying to achieve. A great blessing and a very powerful statement of the Prophet ﷺ is that he told us that your Islam, my Islam, our Islam, buniya ala khams. Buniya al-Islam ala khams. Islam, meaning my Islam and your Islam, is built upon 5 things. So there's 5 pillars. And those 5 pillars are the things that a person should always turn to in order to reset their life. So what happens? I wake up one day and I look around me and I say, I'm not living the way I should. My life is not the way it should be. My house is not the way it should be. My family is not the way it should be. I know it. Nobody needs to tell me. I can feel it inside. There's a truth and a reality to Islam, and I'm not experiencing it. This, by the way, is a self-generated idea. Somebody has to appreciate that, right? If everybody's working and nobody recognizes there's any deviation anywhere, then that's not going to ever lead to anything. A person has to look in the mirror and say, I am not who I want to be. I am better than this. I can be better than this. I can achieve more. Now, when they do that, then the first thing to do is go back and trace the pillars. Go back and trace the pillars. So we return to the Shahada. And the Shahada answers two essential questions for us. Number one, that all of this is not random, that everything around us has been intelligently designed, and that there is no one deity worthy of worship other than Allah. And then it establishes that the Prophet ﷺ is the messenger of Allah, otherwise stated in the context of today's talk, that the Sunnah is the blueprint to achieve success in Deen. Right? That the Prophet ﷺ is the ultimate representative as assigned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide humanity to Deen.